Namaskar and welcome to yet another episode of Zaina Shekaina. Nothing is impossible. Friends, we all know about guitar. Almost every Goan knows about guitar. But we have a different kind of artist today and different kind of guitar. And we are going to welcome Manish Pingle, who has been an exponent of slide guitar, which is slightly different from the normal guitar that we see every day. So Manish, welcome to Gomantak TV.
Thank you so much.
And let's introduce you through a beautiful tune.
Okay, so this is
Wow, beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And tell me, see, they say this particular guitar, which is also known as Bottleneck Guitar, evolved from something called diddly boo,
Yeah.
which was an African instrument, single string African instrument.
Yeah.
But we know very little about it. Tell us the difference between this guitar and the normal guitar.
Okay, let me tell you, the body of the instrument is pretty much the same. The main modifications which are done are in the string arrangements. And the kind of strings which I use are different. The distances between the strings are different. And my instrument has 21 strings.
Okay.
You know, usually the guitars have 6 strings and you play with fingers.
Yes.
But this has 2 layers of string, like a top layer and a bottom layer. So the bottom layer is mainly to kind of, like in any other traditional Indian instrument, like sitar and sarod, you have these sympathetic strings. So this instrument also, we've added sympathetic strings. That's the lower layer, like 13 sympathetic strings, and that's mainly to make it sound very Indian.
Okay.
And that's the reason it's kind of very suitable for Indian classical music. And yeah, of course. And I play with this slide, which is a long slide, and with these finger picks and thumb picks. So you will actually realize that this sounds more like sitar and sarod, and it's a mix of kind of both, but definitely has a guitar body to it.
Obviously, the modification is quite obvious because we heard slide guitar in blues.
Yes.
And we talk about how it was developed from the Hawaiian guitar when the Spanish went to Hawaii.
Yes.
And how it became a popular instrument in any blue music band.
Yes. Yes.
Now you have Indianized it.
Yes.
And when you Indianize it, now you move the slide on the fretboard very seamlessly.
Yeah.
So that you don't see so much in the blues.
Yes.
So how do you differentiate between the way you play slide guitar in a Western music and in Indian classical music?
Yeah. See, the main difference is our training. Whatever, I in fact, let me tell you that I do collaborate with a lot of blues musicians, and I've got an album released which was on iTunes #1 like for a couple months. And it's there's some musicians in England who are blues musicians, so I do collaborate with them. Now the difference is, if we pick up one tune, if he plays, the blues guitar player plays the same tune and I play the same tune, it sounds totally different.
Okay.
Because the approach towards a note is totally different. You know, it's like an accent. I have an accent for English and you have an accent for English, you know. So like, if I speak English, I'll have my accent, and because that's what you've been brought up with.
Yes.
You know, a Tamilian would speak English in a different way, an American would speak in a different, but we are speaking English. So that's exactly what it happens in Indian classical music, or in any form of music for that matter, is whatever you play, your training, your upbringing, you know, your culture is shown in those notes in that. So, and secondly, blues is, they have limited number of, they work on limited scales. So, for example, a blues scale, which it is something like, scale. So this scale to us is Rag Dhani. There's a rag called Dhani. It's an afternoon rag. So it's called Dhani. So when I play, I collaborate with them. Whatever the way they improvise, in my mind it goes, okay, I have to stick to Rag Dhani. And the other scale which is close to Bhopali, which they play a lot. So for me, anything they play in that scale, for me it's Bhopali. So yeah, so that's how it's kind of translated.
Yeah, so the adaptation, like they say, like this instrument became popular after somebody called Tao Moy, who used to play at Taj in Kolkata in 1940s, and he got it popularized among Indian musicians.
But there's a nice story behind it.
Yeah, please, I wanted to know that story from you.
So Tao Moy actually was the one who brought Hawaiian guitar back to India. But let me tell you, as the story goes, that this instrument has been played in South India. They have this instrument called Gotu Vadyam. Gotu Vadyam is what they play. A veena played with the slide. So there was this guy called Gabriel Devion. Gabriel Devion was here. He was learning Gotu Vadyam in South India, and then he traveled on a ship to Hawaiian Islands. And in that travel, he actually wanted to carry. He was carrying that instrument, and he wanted to show people that what I have learned for all these years, or for all that time in South India. But sadly, that instrument was damaged by the time he reached Hawaiian Islands. So he wanted to show something, to them, that what I've learned, So he had no instrument. So he took a pocket knife, like a slider, and he picked up a normal guitar. And he started sliding on it. And that's where, they started playing, these guys started playing Hawaiian guitar or Hawaiian music on a normal slide guitar.
So now you must have, did you play the normal guitar any time, or did you start with the normal guitar, or you directly?
I directly started with this because I grew up playing a little bit of film songs. As a kid, you're not really attracted towards very hardcore Indian classical music. So, but when I was learning, it's a little bit of vocal initially. My mother is a sitar player, so I used to accompany her to the music school. And they wanted me to play an instrument. And naturally, as a kid, you are attracted more towards percussion instruments. So I was like attracted towards tabla and stuff. So, but I could actually see one person playing this slide guitar and playing a little bit of film songs on it. So I was a little attracted towards that instrument. And that time it was just a normal 6-string guitar with raised height. They call it raised action. So you have, normal guitars will have the strings very close to the fretboard. So you can really touch, like you can play like this, press it. Here, it's a raised action. The height is quite a bit. So whatever you play, if I play, say, so I can do this, so, and also about, so this has a possibility of sliding, you can really slide 2 octaves, 1.5 to 2 octaves. So for that you need raised action. So that's what I started with, normal 6-string guitar with raised action and basic tunes, very simple tunes.
And it's less seamless than this. This is more seamless, I think.
Yes.
What were the early influences? Like we know about, guys like Brij Bhushan Kabra and Pandit Vishwamohan Bhatt, who have been the greatest exponents of this instrument.
They are the ones who actually,
So what were the influences on you?
See, I grew up listening to a lot of Indian classical music because we used to have those LPs at home, those vinyls.
I know,
And as a kid, when I used to come back, I used to always listen to, my father used to, love playing those vinyls. He used to get Pandit Ravi Shankar and Pandit Ali Akbar Khan Sahab and Bismillah Khan Sahab, all their vinyls were released. So I grew up pretty much listening to it. Unknowingly, I kind of was, grabbing that sound and that music. But when I picked up this instrument, after that, the only person we could listen to during those times was Pandit Braj Bhushan Kabra. And his first album, which is Call of the Valley, which was a trio, it was released in 1967 and quite a popular one in India and in the West even.
Exactly.
So that was the first time I'd heard the sound of Indian classical music on guitar. So that definitely is my first, inspiration. And still today, whenever you feel like listening to something very divine, I really listened to Pandit Brij Bhushan Kabra. Then of course Pandit Vishwamohan Bhatt came later, and he modified this instrument and he actually renamed it as Mohan Veena.
Yes.
And he added all these strings, most of the strings. So this instrument is pretty much developed by Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, but this Indian classical music on slide guitar was the first one who played it was Pandit Brij Kabra. So he was definitely Pandit Brij Kabra, Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt. And then most of my training is from a sitar player from Itawa Gharana. His name is Ustad Shahid Parvez.
Okay.
So
yes,
Shahid
very
Parvez,
famous artist.
a very famous artist. So I was in complete awe of his music and his technique and his perfection. And I somehow managed to approach him and start taking lessons from him, start learning from him. So yeah, and of course in vocals we used to listen to a lot of D.V. Paluskar, we used to listen to Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Amir Khan Sahab, and it continues. It's still
this has been your passion for a long time.
Yeah.
But when you started off, you are a product of Film and Television Institute, Pune,
Yes.
and you kind of graduated or you came out as a very capable sound engineer.
Yes.
Now, as a sound engineer, did you pursue that career, or you were drawn towards this?
See, I'll tell you what. There's some good things about picking up an instrument which is rare, and there's certain drawbacks of picking an instrument which is so rare. So when I picked this instrument, people really didn't know about it. So I, like as a harmonium player or as a flute player or as a tabla player, you get some work. It might be some recording work, some teaching work. People get jobs in All India Radio and music colleges and all. For me, there were no options. Except concerts, there was nothing. So I was playing this instrument, but I was relying totally on my concerts, which wasn't happening then much. I'm talking about early 90s, and then I also was definitely fascinated by this, by the sound world and the film world. So I thought I should study something which would help me in my music, in my journey. So I tried for Film Institute. I got into it, and at 3 years I studied films. That's where my life completely changed, and I got into serious filmmaking, sound engineering. Then I came out, I passed out of FTII, and then I worked for quite a few years on a lot of international projects. Initially a lot of channel work, documentary films, ad films, and so a lot of international films as well.
Even Life of Pi.
I worked on Life of Pi. I worked on Eat, Pray, Love with Julia Roberts.
Yeah, okay.
And then I did 1 or 2 seasons of Satyameva Jayate, which was a series produced by Amir Khan Productions and hosted by Amir Khan. So I was part of that. And so quite a few, some studio work and stuff like that.
It sounds interesting, and we would like to know also why you did not pursue a career of sound engineer and why you did pursue this particular career. But before that, let's take a break. It's time for a short break.
Absolutely.
We'll meet after the break. Don't go anywhere. Keep watching Gomantak TV, Zaina Ashe Kaina. Welcome once again to Zaina Ashe Kaina, and we are here in a tete-a-tete with exponent of slide guitar, an eminent musician who has been performing internationally, our own Manish Pingle. Manish, welcome once again.
Thank you so much.
We were talking about your career choice, and when I talk about career choice, you had an option of becoming a sound engineer, or you had an option of becoming a slide guitar player.
Yes.
Why did you choose this particular
I did work as a sound engineer for quite a few years. But my passion has always been music. So sound I did it religiously, for quite a few years, and I worked on a lot of international films and television and documentaries, as I mentioned earlier. But in my life, there's certain things which are destined. So I think this instrument chose me, rather than me choosing the instrument. So there was one video of, I was a full-fledged sound engineer doing very well, One student of mine came from the US and he was there for one day, and he said he wants to take a few lessons.
Okay.
So I was just playing in front of him and he was recording, as these guys were recording. So I was just playing something and this guy was recording, and then he went back to the US and he uploaded that on YouTube. That was the first video of mine, which is still there in, on YouTube.
Okay.
And when I saw it, I was not too happy about it because I was in my pajamas, sitting at home in my bedroom and playing something for him. And I was not too happy, and I asked him to kind of remove it from YouTube.
Yeah.
He said, give me 1 or 2 days and give me 2 days and I'll remove it from YouTube. But within those 2 days, I started getting emails from different countries, from Spain, from France and other countries, saying that, oh, this is the most exciting year of Indians of guitar you've heard. Is there any way we could invite you to Spain or Sweden or something? So within 6 months, my travel began.
Okay.
Yeah, so that one video.
Which year was this?
This must have been 2007, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, that one video completely changed my life. I traveled almost 35 countries because of that one video.
I see.
I mean, of course, initially started with that. And then slowly, once you connect with people like your music, they invite you again. So that was the turning point. The thing I always say that the farther you travel, the more you're valued. I was not valuing myself and my playing, though I was religiously doing it, practicing it. Even I was working very hard as a sound engineer. I used to come back home, practice really hard, till I used to fall asleep.
Okay.
So that was the routine. So I really have worked hard on this, but without really thinking much about the success of it, because I really wanted to do this. But that one incident and then a few travels which happened and connected with people and then started teaching online. I've been teaching online for almost 12 years now.
Yes,
I think I was perhaps...
you have been teaching in Goa also?
I've been teaching film in Goa, film sound in Goa.
Achha.
I've been teaching in a lot of other film schools as well. I teach in Mumbai, I teach in Goa. I recently did a workshop on film sound in Hyderabad in Ramanaidu Film School. So I've been invited as a visiting faculty as a sound engineer. But a lot of countries do invite me as a musician. So I kind of have to manage both. But of course, when it comes to choosing, I always prefer to travel as a musician.
So when you do concerts in India and when you do concerts abroad, what is the choice that people have abroad? What do they like to listen to?
Yeah, the main difference is people in India, they're used to listening to Indian classical music, they know the sound of it, and most of the audience which we see in the concerts are pretty much Indian classical literate audience. So for them to play for Indian audience is a different kind of a challenge because a little mistake, a little thing is kind of amplified because they know it well. Okay. On the other side, when you go abroad and play there, I've had a wonderful experience playing for those European audience, and even in the East, I've traveled a lot in the East, in Japan, China, and stuff like that. I always loved the ethics of listening, the kind of ethics they have in listening. Irrespective of what music they're listening to, it could be jazz, it could be Indian classical, it could be blues, or any neo or any new genre. But they have this ethics of listening. They sit there in that meditative pose. You might not hear a reciprocation. They're saying that, oh, wow, kya baat hai, bahut achhe, and all that, which we love to hear as musicians when you're sitting on the stage. But in that case, we know that they're in that meditative pose and they're listening, they're observing, and they're kind of giving their respect. They'll clap only, and they'll clap. Most of the concerts, you have standing ovations. Most of the concerts, there's a long clapping happens towards the end. So it's that respect, it's that ethics, but of course, you know that for them it's something which is very unique, which they wouldn't listen to it every now and then. In Indian mehfils or sammelans, as we call them, classical sammelans, people who sit in front of us are the ones you can't fool around. If you pick up a rag, you have to be master of it either, or at least try to be, to justify.
They have a thorough knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. Why don't you spoke about that meditative mood.
Yeah.
I would request you to put us and our audience in that meditative mood for a few moments.
Okay. Let me see what I can play.
Yeah.
raga, just to kind of give you a little small difference how beautiful our Indian music is. Like the note which I'm playing here is like, it's re. For people who are literate in Indian classical music or any music for that matter, that's Komal re.
Yes.
If I played slightly on the sharper side, like you use that re for a morning raga, but on the same re you play for an evening raga, it's slightly on the flatter side.
Okay.
So it's like, so it's the same re, but I'm going slightly behind my fret.
Okay.
So that's, it's the mood. It depends on the sun, the position of the sun and the light and the mood, So the morning ones always depict spiritual feelings, and the evening was mostly a more romantic kind of a thing. So so that's how, the Western audience and Western musicians, they kind of really come to us with open arms, want to grab all this, the knowledge Indian music actually has to offer.
What is that? That's what I wanted to ask you. Like when they listen to it, curiosity is fine and interest is fine.
Yeah.
But is there a serious attempt from their side to pick up and learn this?
Oh yeah, I have almost 35 students now online, and most of them are foreigners, And I'm so surprised to see that more and more are coming, and I actually every second day I get an email from someone saying that I'm in Dubai or somewhere in Philadelphia or somewhere, and I'm fascinated with this instrument. First, what happens is, guitar is familiar to them.
Yes.
They love Indian classical music.
Yes.
So a lot of people have already been playing guitar, as you say, bottleneck, you just mentioned. So people do play. Bottleneck is nothing but like a slide. You wear it on your third finger and you slide like this. So it's a slide which is like. So they know slide guitar. They know bottleneck style of playing. But they're fascinated with Indian classical music, and they want to learn these microtones or shrutis, as we call them.
Okay.
So that's why more and more students are getting attracted towards Indian classical music and this instrument.
But are there any institutes like formally teaching this instrument in India?
More one-on-one, I guess.
Okay.
Not that I know, which is.
Because we have so many music schools all over the place.
This is something it's still not as popular as any other traditional instrument like flute and sitar and sarod. So there are institutes which, like in Goa also, you have wonderful institutes which has a subject called sitar, a tabla as a subject. But slide guitar as of now, but soon I'm sure it has to happen.
Because see, like instruments like we heard earlier time, like something like Vichitra Veena and all, which were very popular at one time, but now nobody talks about it. So that's what, in Indian context, how do you look at the future of this instrument and slide guitar playing?
It has really picked up in last few years. In late 60s, this has started when very few of them really knew. So it's developing in every way. The sound wise, it's getting amazing. Then technique wise, everyone who comes in brings in its own technique, because it's still under development. So now every time you see a new slide guitar player or an Indian slide guitar player coming and performing or playing, you see something different. You hear something different. So it's in that, it's developing still. So I just think it's going to grow bigger and bigger. And I really am confident about this, because there are many more students, people know about this instrument. But those initial days of Pandit Brajbhushan Kabra or Pandit Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, they had to prove that this could be used in Indian classical music. So their struggle was a different.
Here I look at Indian classical music as a huge sea which kind of encompasses all kinds of currents.
Yes.
And welcoming them.
Yeah.
And getting richer and richer.
Yeah.
So but was there a kind of feeling that frowning from people when it was introduced newly? Did people frown and say like, oh, this is something different, can we adopt it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think all the slide guitar players have gone through that when people thought, "Kya baja raha hai? What are you? Kya bajoto hai tu? Kutla instrument bajoto? What are you playing? What instrument is this?
Exactly,
Why don't you play sitar? Why don't you play sarod? This. All of us, I still go through that. And people think that, why are you playing this instrument? Why can't you play sitar? And because as I said, there's a beauty to this instrument, but now there's also a different kind of a struggle. Like for example, I was traveling a few years back in north of Sweden, and some mishandling of the instrument happened by the airlines, and it broke. If you
Oh.
can see, this instrument broke. The neck came off, and I went to a luthier. Luthier is a guy who actually repairs guitars. Luthier, and he initially refused to touch it. He said, "It's guitar, but I don't know what it is." You know, had it been an instrument which was known to them, they would have kind of been. But fortunately, I mean, I saved somehow. I've met this luthier who managed to kind of fix it, and I could play the concert. But even in India, I live in Mumbai. These instruments are made in Calcutta. So for a smallest repair, I have to fly to Calcutta. So these are the drawbacks of playing an instrument which is picked up by very few. Yeah, so challenges.
Maybe because it's so rare, it is so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Because
it is
I mean, all beautiful things are hard to come.
Absolutely.
They are difficult.
Absolutely.
I mean, normal instruments we see people playing and we listen to them everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay, like every day we listen to this day in and day out.
Yes.
But this is something different. Let's end this, like we have short time. Let's end this with another beautiful note from your side.
You know, maybe I'll play a small composition in Rag Bhairavi.
Yes.
Bhairavi is supposed to be played towards the end of the concert or something.
So
So I'm
let's
going
end
to
it
try
with
this,
Bhairavi.
So, and I'll also want to tell you something that there's certain things which are possible in this instrument are like when you collaborate with a lot of international musicians, you learn something through them. You know, so this sound which it's like I'll play for you and you'll realize the difference in the sound.
Yes. Manish, I'm short of words. It was not only pleasure to ears, but to the soul and heart also.
Thank you so much.
So you enthralled us. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes.
You know, it's a wonderful feeling to be
real
here
pleasure.
and being interviewed by you. And my best
sir.
wishes to Gomantak TV.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manish. But you don't go anywhere. We are going to come back. Keep watching Gomantak TV. Zaina Ashekaina.
Sayana Shakaina.